prices. And I think that this is a little microcosm of maybe things that are happening other places. I've heard about this going on in Cleveland as well. I think we need to work on figuring out where this is coming from, because I think it's all based in money, like most things are, right? But I think if we can figure out where this is coming from and maybe try to create housing for people that's affordable. I don't know. I have medicine brain, by the way. I'm all hopped up on Dayquil. So I really just don't understand what's going on. And it's one of the things that I really want to get to the bottom of, because I don't get it. And I've talked to some realtors and things in the area to try to figure out what their take on things. The problem is with this district, especially with 12. The third is a completely different matter, but especially in 12 is that you have people who are living in the city, people who are living in Clintonville, but then you've got this rural area too that's got a whole nother pocket of problems when it starts to come to affordable housing. So this is a bigger issue than I think just that, but I think where it starts is taxes. I think we need to fund our schools, no matter where it is.
So like Jenny said, I'm not quite sure what's happening with Columbus.
I don't get it.
But one big thing is gentrification. I know that's happening. And it's happening at a very alarming and terrifying rate. To me, it echoes a Jim Crow era Ohio. And I didn't grow up during that time, but from speaking with people that have seen it or witnessed it, they're experiencing flashbacks. So from where I work, I look across the street and there was affordable housing. It cost about $500 a month. They have turned them down, building a shopping center and apartments starting at $1,250 a month. And I work in Whitehall. So all those families had to move. Where did they move? They ended up moving to areas like Reynoldsburg, areas that they slightly could not afford. Now, all their kids are now going to Reynoldsburg or Pickerington schools. All their kids got the old school building, while the white kids got moved to a newer building. So it's a whole plethora of issues right there. And it all started with, we want to clean up an area. Okay, I understand wanting to make things look nicer and cleaner and maybe revitalize the community, but it should not come at the expense of our students and our school systems, and also people losing their homes or being forced out and be forced into an area that they can no longer afford. So companies are coming in, they're enticing them with these tax breaks to bring them in, but look at what the ultimate cost is. People have to move farther away just so they can afford a place to live, or they're losing their homes and the city gets divided out. The wealthy get the nice, clean looking areas where everyone else is getting pushed off to the side. So those things need to change. We need people paying their fair share. Think of our kids and think of the people that want to have that forever home that are now losing their homes because of things like this. So it's a very complicated matter, but from what little things I've seen and the people I've talked to, it's far more complex than anybody realizes.
Economic segregation is a big reason why I decided to even pursue a career in public policy, because I got trained early on in the way things work here in Central Ohio, that your neighborhood, your zip code, your school district is one of the biggest determinant of the resources available to you and the opportunity available to you in your life. And it is a major problem that nothing has changed over the course of my lifetime, that if anything, it's getting worse and more difficult to get by. And the fact that this is a region in the country that if you were born poor, you are more likely to die poor than anywhere else in the country is a shame, and we should be ashamed. But the reality is we need leaders that are going to be honest about that and do the things that are necessary to address it. And there are a couple of things specifically. One is tied to education. The way that we fund our public schools through property taxes has already been found to be unconstitutional, and we now need political leadership that is going to prioritize bringing together the relevant stakeholders at the local, state, federal level to actually change the way we fund our public schools so you don't have to leave your community to get into a better school. Because I think we all know we've reached the end of that experiment, right? It's like how much farther can you go? And I'm talking to people that, well, they moved out as far as Canal Winchester and thought they were gonna get into one school, but then learned they're on the wrong side of the street. So that's not working. The other thing specifically related to housing, that we have opportunities for people to stay in the communities where they have historically been, revolves around actually, one, stabilizing rents as the housing market is rising through legislation like national rent stabilization that I'm backing, and also building more housing and building it in places all over the city so that people can continue to access housing. And the final thing that I would say is the root of this economic segregation does track with a lot of policies that were made through federal housing regulations that were racist, that denied the ability for a lot of Black folks in our community to be able to get mortgages, right? Build wealth. And that's gonna take a whole package of policies through systemic reparations to address that, to get a lot of the core issues that have led to our current situation.
Thank you. So I have a couple of yes or no questions. These are gonna be quick, and I really want you to keep it to a yes or a no. I know that's tough for politicians.
Oh, please don't call me a politician.
I know, sorry. So our friends at Women Have Options, which hopefully you're all familiar with, a reproductive health organization, submitted the following yes or no questions about reproductive justice. And we'll just go down the line. Is abortion health care?
Yes.
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 Should we make it easier to access abortion care?
Yes.
Yes.
Should public insurance cover abortion, which would result in appealing the Hyde Amendment?
Yes.
Thank you. Another quick yes or no question. Do you support the Green New Deal?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. These are easy and quick, so we're moving quickly. This one is a little more complicated. Mass incarceration is one of the country's defining civil rights issues. The United States has less than 5% of the world's population, but almost 25% of its prison population, which puts a disproportionate burden on communities of color. The fight to end mass incarceration took a significant step forward when the First Step Act became law in December 2018, marking the most substantial federal legislation on criminal justice reform. What next steps would you propose for ending mass incarceration?
Who wants to go first on that one? So criminal justice reform is a massive thing we need to overhaul. Like the statistics she put out, we actually have an entire country's population in our prison system. The entire country of Lithuania is in our prison system. So we need to go through and actually stop the for-profit prisons, stop prisons from fining states if they're not at capacity or not, get rid of that. We need to overhaul our cash bail system because we have people that are in jail and they haven't even gone to trial yet. We have a constitution that says you're innocent until proven guilty. With the cash bail system, it's now you're guilty until you're proven innocent. And that affects a large group of people, and largely minority communities, because if they can't afford to pay, they can't get out. They lose their jobs, they lose their kids. So we need to fix that. Then we also need to look at the racial undertones in some of these laws that have been passed. Like, for example, the '94 crime bill. I understand at that time things were crazy, but it disproportionately hurt the minority communities and imposed mandatory sentences. And when you have two people going to court for the exact same crime, one person is getting 6 months probation for raping an unconscious student, where the next person is sentenced to 10 years in prison for the exact same crime, and the only difference is the color of their skin, we have a criminal justice problem. And it goes back farther than what anybody wants to admit, but we have to fix the system. And we need to fix it big time, because this issue all started back in 1865. And we need to correct it now. We've waited 150 years to fix these problems. It's about time we get things done.
I would just name a couple additional things. I agree with the criminal justice system. We know it to be racist, and there's a double standard in how a lot of these laws are applied. And we see the impacts of that here in the 3rd District. We have incarceration rates in certain neighborhoods that are 4 times the rate of neighboring zip codes. And that's not an accident, it tracks with race, and we need to do something to stop that. And that does involve addressing a lot of the issues of even our local police departments. And what it takes to get there is having leaders that are free to speak out about misconduct by the police. And unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of local elected officials that are willing to do that, but I commit to being one of those who will speak out when we have racism that is being inflicted in our communities at the hands of police, in addition, and also at times resulting in the death of our young people. It cannot go on like this. We can be a national leader in putting an end to police violence, and we need to have that representation. The other thing that I would say is that we need to also be providing, for those who have entered the criminal justice system, that we are treating this as a rehabilitation opportunity and providing training. And this can be something that could also be part of the Green New Deal that was referenced before, so that people are able to access employment and the punishment doesn't continue after you serve your time. We have to have job opportunities that are also available to returning citizens.
Well, I think we all agree on all of these things. I would emphasize the stop making money off of people put in cages. I think we do that way too much in this country, and we're seeing it on our southern border right now. I think we need to talk about drug criminalization, because again, it affects the minority population. I think those are all the things that, we can all agree on how we are putting people away that shouldn't be put away, and we're not giving them a chance to get any better. Our reform system is not a reform system, it's a punishment system. It is not a system where we give people an opportunity to actually get an education, or teach them skills, or teach them how to live outside of prison. So you get people who are coming out who there's no affordable housing, right? You get people who are going right back to where they came from originally because they have no place else to go. We don't set people up for success in our criminal justice system, and I think that it all stems from racism, straight up. But I don't know. There you go.
Thank you. One more yes or no question. Our friends at Black Central, I thought I saw Butch in here, I'm not sure if he's still here or not. They would like to know whether or not you support reparations. Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
So we're not allowed to add anything?
We have time, you can add.
Well, I would just add a little bit more to that one in particular, because reparations, so I've been calling it systemic reparations, and I can provide a little bit more background as to why. Oftentimes, and I'm sure a lot of us have experienced this, the buzzword, and for some people, they hear reparations, they think slavery, and if I didn't have a direct connection to slavery, then I have no responsibility for any of the issues that we're talking about. And I've found, while talking to people in our district, that systemic reparations invites a conversation, keeps people listening, and there's a lot of education that needs to happen for folks to understand the legacy of racial injustice that has occurred not in the distant past, but right here in our community up until the present day. And that's one of the reasons why I thought it was important to include systemic reparations on the platform. Where Congress has been to date, and this generation of political leadership has been mostly focused on HR 40. It's a bill that talks mostly about slavery and talks about studying the issue. And I believe that the studying should have concluded a long time ago. We know the facts, and now we need to be moving very aggressively towards solutions. What is it going to look like to actually pass legislation that will address the racial wealth gap that is over $100,000 between Black and white families in this country? And our district, the 3rd District, being one of the most safe Democratic districts in the entire country, can actually be a national leader in moving that conversation forward to solutions.
100 years of someone's history. So everything started in the 1600s. I can't put a dollar amount on it. I know the last time this nation did something similar to this, it was back during World War II. We rounded up Japanese Americans, we put them in internment camps, forced them to sell their homes, their businesses. They did not get an apology from the United States government until the 1990s, and they were given about $1,200. $1,200 for selling their home, their business, and forced to live in a desert for 4 years during a war, and their sons and their husbands had to prove their loyalty to the United States by serving in the Army. So we need to rethink the way we've done things. And there's no dollar amount that I can put on it, but something needs to be done, because the last time we did this, we did it so wrong. And it's shameful, and I do not want to see a repeat of that. So I agree with Morgan, we have to find a better way to handle things all the way down to the atomic level to find the solution. Because that's the only way we're going to be able to do it the right way the first time. Because this time we're not going to get a review on it.
I would like to just talk a moment about language. And in my district, in 12, it is mostly rural, it is mostly white. And their problems, they think, are not the same as the problems of like the third. We have all been told that we don't have the same issues, black, white, poor, rich. But I think that the 12th district and the 3rd district, no matter if you're talking about African American or you're talking about white, rural, poor people, they're kind of facing the same sort of issues. And I think what we need to do is bring together, we need to bring us all together here. And I think when we start, when people say reparations, it's a scary word. And I think it invokes a lot of negative thoughts, and I don't like that. I think one of the first things I asked Morgan was, what's another word, what's another way of saying reparations? Because I was like, it's hard to say that word, but I mean, what we're talking about is equity, you know, and we're talking about how we're not treated all the same, and we should be. And that's where it comes down to, and it, you know, a lot of people in this country weren't given the same opportunities as others. And not only that, they were pushed down, so they would never get the opportunities as others. I think, you know, we've been taught to be divisive, and we've been taught that we can't work together, so, you know, we'll get together and we overthrow, right? So I think that we need to talk about, you know, the equity of what reparations is. And I just when you said that question, like, do you support reparations? It's hard for me to just be like yes or no, because just because of language, I think it scares people to say that word. We know what it means, but I think a lot of Americans don't know what that means. Does that make sense?
No, educate them.
Okay, thank you.
It's education. It's education.
Educate them, bring awareness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Say the words.
So this is another question.
Cut the check.
We're seeing more and more issues get split along party lines, which is leading to more issues deadlocked in Congress with no movement. What issue are you willing to cross party lines to address?
Guns. Guns.
I'm willing to cross party lines to work with anyone who is committed to the same values that I am. That everyone in our community deserves to have health care, housing, jobs that pay enough to live. But what I will not do is compromise away our future. We have had a generation of that. It has not served us. It has enriched those who represent us, and we have got to change the way that we are holding people accountable who represent us. I am offering to be a representative that is for people first, for us, in the fight, with you, organizing, and demanding that representatives from all parties are also fighting for those values. Because I agree with what's been said. we all have a lot more in common than that which divides us, but we need to have representatives that are going to be honest about that and put the resources into organizing us to support the legislation that is going to ensure that everyone in our community has a stable life.
So I was asked this same question Friday by some of the lovely students at Ohio State. And for me, it depends on what they're asking me to compromise on. Because I don't want to compromise on my values and what the people that elected me expected me to do. So if they're coming to me and asking for border wall funding, I'm going to say no. If they're coming to me to say that they want to get Social Security, I'm going to tell them to see the door politely as they walk out, because I'm not going to let anybody touch Social Security that's going to want to defund it, or other programs that are so necessary for many people in this country to live. So it all has to come down to what they want me to come to the table and talk about. It's all about the subject, and I don't want to compromise my values or compromise the lives of the people I'm elected to represent. Because my job is to take care of them first and make sure that they're able to survive and get ahead in this country.
I think that the division between parties, again, there are people who do not want us to get along, right? So I have been trying my hardest to have an open mind. I used to, say, I'll never vote for a Republican, never, ever, 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 and they're evil. And then, I feel like I've grown up a lot. You turn 40, things like that happen. And you realize, like I said, we all kind of,